Grant us, we ask, to speak, to hear, and to learn, so that our fears may be banished, our minds may become enlightened, our faith be increased, and our steps directed towards you. Well, I've got some good news. I polled my students, and I polled people from all souls, and the good news is people are consistently, whether they're young or older, they are thankful for the same things, and it's been consistent. Family is number one, friends number two, health number three, and pets number four. And that's consistent, whether it be college students or people in the middle or people older, it runs pretty well through. Also still with us, I asked people what things you're not thankful for, and it was consistent too. Stress, emotional or physical bad health, anxiety, money, and of course, if you're a college student, exams and professors you can't stand. Also, aside from this is the season to remind us of the basics. I would like to suggest that Rumi has a different suggestion. Sorrow prepares you for joy. It violently sweeps everything out of your house. It pulls up the rotten roots so that new roots hidden beneath have room to grow. I would like to suggest from this we have a different way of doing Thanksgiving today. Now, this is a suggestion, because remember, as a minister, that's the best I can do in these days and age. I'm not wearing a powdered wig with the white bands and thundering that you must do this. So today we give shares. I share opinions. I'd like to suggest that we look at sorrow, disaster, and bad things and offer thanksgiving. I know that's totally counterintuitive. Sorrow, disaster, and bad things. Bear with me. I would suggest that midlife crises can be good. I would suggest that hitting bottom can be excellent, that divorce is not as bad as you may think, and at work, other relationships that seem awful at work can lead to new things. Bear with me. With everything that goes bad and rotten, it may be the time that everybody needs to wake up and do the change that down deep you know you need to do, but have been stuck and haven't done it. It may be a time for growth. It may be a time for serious growth. It's never too late to make changes and to grow. It may be time to discover and rediscover the essential you that's gotten kind of somehow baked over with all the stuff that's been distressing you for decades. It may also be time to give me, myself, and I a vacation. Give your ego a vacation and time to find new things. Bear with me. For instance, what if what you thought was you turns out not to be you? I read this in the New York Times. I love this. This female author said that she was fascinated by the cult of the sad woman. She writes, I was 22 and deeply committed to a life of volcanic feeling, doomed love affairs, binge drinking, and other tentatively self-destructive hobbies. She writes, I was all in, fully committed, truth as something dark and broken. I wanted sustenance of affliction. I love it. And this is what she did. This was her until it didn't work. And she had to discover that what she thought was her, living in sadness and affliction and disrepair and violent this and violent, this didn't work. And she woke up someday and said, you know, it worked until it didn't, and probably it never worked. And I had to find a new life. She goes on to become a best-selling author. Look at your career. I don't know how many of you have had a career that ended disastrously. It winds up not working, and I don't like sharing like this, but this is, real. I had, the last church I went to, some of you may remember it, I had about 60 on Sunday morning. When I left, we had 400, 3 services. It went from being the 6,008th size to number 78th in attendance in the entire denomination. But the career was over. Because what did I use to sustain me from all of the stress? I always wanted to be a large church pastor. At the age of 34, I had my first large church, 960 families. When I left, it was 1,060. Second church was about 3,000. The last one I told you about. This is what I always wanted to do. And guess what? It was bad for me. I hate to admit it. Though I was a good preacher, the stress was awful. And I found out I'm a little more fragile than I like to admit. It's a very hard thing to admit to people. It's hard to admit to yourself. And so I would drink, not because I needed to be social, because it was a tranquilizer. It's the only way I could keep calm. And so I found that after the career was over, oddly enough, here I come to FIU, I come to Miami-Dade County, and I take, and I know you all know this, it is considered the bottom of the bottoms, an adjunct professor teaching English composition. This is where you go when you have been exiled in life, or you're just starting out. Nobody wants to teach comp because everybody has to take it and nobody can stand it. It's right down there with math. Math and English composition have consistently rated with being the pits, the abyss, the hellhole of life, of college. And so that's what I did. This is where I was. I went from being, and I became nothing, and had a ball. Who would have thought that what I thought was good and what I always wanted to do turned out to be awful? And what I thought would be, well, it's the way it is. It's just you got to stick out the rest of your life being at the bottom. That's what you deserve, doggone it all. And I found out it was a ball. I learned stuff right and left. I gained strength, haven't had a drink in 25 years. I got all this stuff happening, and I continue to learn. People say to me, why don't you retire? I said, do I look, by the way, that I have enough energy to retire? Do I look like somebody who should be sitting home? Seriously, do I look like somebody who should be sitting home and like, maybe I can get out to the store today? I'm not there yet. What I learned from students. Somebody said, why are you teaching? I said, I learn more from the students, I think, than they learn from me. First of all, the energy level is incredible. What they watch on Netflix is a riot. What they bring to the table in terms of their lives makes me very much aware that we're failing our students right and left and helping them grow and receive nurture. Plus, they have ideas. They have technology that I never dreamed of. By the way, I want to tell you, I just discovered a key to my horrible texting. For those of you who've never seen me text, you'll notice that I use a language that either never existed or has been extinct for years, decades, some millennia. I didn't realize, by the way, in your phone, if you press a thing that's where microphone is, you can talk into the microphone. Judy was talking to her phone the other day. I'm thinking, why is she talking into her phone? Then I go home and discover this little thing. And I said, I hit the thing. If I talk, will this come out as a text? Lo and behold, who knew? Who knew?
You got to edit it, though.
Yeah, I saw that, yes. The other words will come out that you might not want to come out. Why wouldn't you want to be around kids, 19, 18-year-olds? I got some 15-year-olds. You learn. You never stop learning. I tell my students, a good teacher is still a student. It may very well be that career that you thought is not what's good for you. You may have wanted it, desired it. You may find out it's not good for you. What a shock that was. I tell you what a shock. I'm glad I did it, but I'm glad I got out. I'm not happy about the way it ended, but I got a new start. And that may be somebody that we know. Time to get over it. It didn't work. Number 2, relationships. My students want to know how I have been in a relationship with my wife for 20 years, and I'm very happy. I said, if you subtract 20 years from my age, there are decades that existed before that. And I said, I had the interesting thing of making bad relationships into an art form. I said, I don't recommend that to those of you. But some of us, as my mother says, are late bloomers. It takes a while to get it together. I think one of the mistakes that happens that we don't often see is that when you have a bad relationship, it's a good time to look at yourself to see don't talk about it. When somebody else, you blame the other person, what you're doing is denying what you brought to the relationship that wasn't good. I remember people would come into me when I did a lot of counseling when I was in the ministry full time. And somebody just gone through a divorce. They said, the other person. I don't hear about the other person. That's not you. It's not them. There's nothing you can do about that. They are what they are. What did you bring into the relationship that wasn't healthy for you? I don't want to talk about that. Well, I said, denial is not a river in Egypt. That's a very, very famous phrase. The reality is, everybody that has a failed relationship also has to look and see what they need to do for themselves to get healthy. Because if you don't, what you do, and I have done this, you bring your baggage into the next relationship. That fails. You still don't fix it. You bring the baggage. It wasn't until you get rid of all the baggage. So I say to my students, don't for a minute think that the relationship I had with my wife for 20 years didn't get there. I had to do a lot of homework, a lot of work, a lot of time figuring out the stuff that I don't do well and try to work on. Now, you all know you don't fix things, but you learn to identify them. Some things you fix, but you learn to identify them. You learn to say you're sorry. You learn to try to watch out for stuff. And so it may very well be a divorce to be a time to wake up and say, all right, what work do I need to do before I go further? Does that make sense to anybody? All right, number 3, hitting bottom. In AA and 12-step programs, sometimes you don't realize how bad it is until you go as far as you go, as deep as you can go. I don't think it has just with addictions. I think with anything. I think with anything, sometimes you have to hit absolute bottom, so you can't blame it on anybody else. I mean, there's nothing else to blame. You're at the bottom. Unless you pulled what I did when I was in college. I remember one time when I was a junior in college, somebody came in to me and said, well, cheer up, Claus. It can't get any worse. And a day later, I said, I have discovered new depths. Now, the reality is, sometimes you get where there's no new depths to discover, and there's no excuses. So maybe hitting bottom is a good thing. There's no excuses. There's no denial anymore. There's no way out. You're there. And the only way to get out is to begin to be able to crawl up and stay one step at a time and to learn. So a career, relationships, hitting bottom, midlife crises. Everybody has them. Some have them younger than at others. Some have delayed midlife crises. It's part of growing up. As I say to my students, it's known as Life 101. Everybody hits that point where they look at things and they're not happy. Now, this is interesting. You women in this room might find this statistic interesting. They did a study of women 55 and older, 50 and older. And they found that once women stopped having children and stopped having to do all these things that was required of them, they blossomed. And so a lot of women, 50 and older, decided, that's it. I've done everything I need to do. Thank you. If the husband was a drag, it was treating them like a slave. You're my cook, the bottle washer, the this, the that. Get rid of him, get over, start a new business, go into this, go to the gym, do this, do that, and are flourishing. They found that 70-some% of women over the age of 50 were happy as the clams, well-adjusted, in good shape, and loving life. Men, 27%. That was it. They didn't learn to make the adjustments. It's a great opportunity. Midlife crises, rather than screaming, yelling, and everything else, it's a great opportunity to get out of and start over again. Rumi said the following, and I never forget the first time I read this, because I'm really, really just like, whoa. Sorrow prepares you for joy. The first time I read that, I thought, how did I miss this? Have you ever read something and you wondered, like, how could you possibly miss this? I wondered, all right, Reverend Doctor, with all your age, how did you miss this? This is from the 1200s. Sorrow prepares you for joy. It violently sweeps out everything out of your house. It pulls up rotten roots so that new roots hidden beneath have room to grow. For the new roots, for the new joy, for the new each and every one of us, from things that we learned that we never thought we'd be thankful. Let us offer thanks and thanks, and glad that we grew and continue to grow. Amen. A hymn was written by a pastor who buried 4,000 people. At the end of the